Hey, before I kick off the podcast, I just want to shout out Next Door Clothing. Next Door, a clothing brand based out of Bondi in Sydney. They're making really nice jeans and shirts and hats. So go and check out their full range at nextdoorsydney.com. They're also artists, so you can go and check out a range of art. They put on rad parties, and I love what they're doing. So nextdoorsydney.com for the full range. Hey friends, it's Shan here. How are ya? Hey, listen, thanks for tuning into my conversation with Green's political party candidate, Mr. Dylan Green. I mean, the guy's 24 years old and is brave enough to step into the political arena and maybe take on political leadership, and I'm intrigued by that. So it's a nice conversation. Jess Whitaker co-hosts. She's a very active member in the Greens political party. I would like to say, though, by having Dylan as a guest on the show, my underlying motivation is to motivate you to become engaged and educate yourself about politics in your local area. I really have come to believe over the last few years that being complacent, sitting on the fence, or doing like what I do and burying your head in the sand, which is what I've done for many years because I'm resentful towards politicians and politics. Like, I really am. However, I feel like not doing anything is also bad. And we have a right to vote, but I also believe we have a responsibility to vote. So educate yourself, understand what these political leaders are doing, understand the policies they're putting forward, and exercise your right to vote, because it will make a difference and it can make a difference, and that's going to change lives. I really was reluctant to, talk about politics on the podcast. It's cringy, but in this instance, I feel very compelled and a sense of conviction. So I hope you receive it with an open heart, and if you want to go at me politically, sure, go ahead. I'm not going to really have much of a comeback except educate yourself, engage, be involved, activate, be an activist. The other thing I want to ask you is to check out my Patreon. I've started a Patreon for the podcast. I've been doing this thing for 3 years. Weekly episodes for that whole time pretty much. I had to lose a couple of weeks for various personal reasons, but it's weekly episodes. I'm over 150 episodes down. I'm not stopping anytime soon. By subscribing and becoming a Patreon of this podcast, you'll be supporting me in engaging more authentic guests, and I do strive for authenticity. I think authenticity is key. My original purpose was to have authentic guests to come on, tell their story, their experiences, their challenges, their hopes for the future, in the hope that you would identify with elements of their story, and that would reduce mental isolation for you. At the very least, I hope you're being entertained. And if you are, and you want to support me in continuing on this journey and creating these scenarios and these contexts for awesome conversations, please get on. It's $15 a month. And it also gives me the opportunity to engage with the organizations, the charities, the causes that my guests advocate for, and indirectly raise the awareness of those as well. I felt an innate sense of purpose when I first started this podcast, and that hasn't left me. In fact, it's growing even stronger. So please join me on the journey. Anyway, I really hope that you enjoy this episode. So thanks. I need somewhere to go, Jess. I get told where to go all the time. Sort of. All right, so this is for Clementine and Otis. Terrible happy talks. Terrible happy talks.
Yeah, good to meet you, man. Whoa. Dude, I'm
Here we go. 3, 2, 1. All right, let's do this. Today's guest is Dylan Green. Dylan is the Greens political party candidate for the seat of Cunningham at the upcoming Australian federal election. when I learned that Dylan was 24 years old, passionate about social justice issues, climate change, and generally wanting to challenge the status quo, I became immediately intrigued by the guy. So today, Dylan is with me in person in his apartment to share journey, experiences, challenges, and hopes for the future. Mr. Dylan Green, welcome.
Thank you very much, Shannon. Very nice to be here in my apartment.
It is your.
It's nice to have you here too.
We're going to talk about that.
Sure, okay.
And shout out to this week's co-host, past guest, activist, change maker, maybe, I don't know, friend. Oh, thanks for saying that, Jess. I wasn't sure. An all-round good human, Mrs. Jess Whitaker.
Thanks for having me again.
It's great to have you, Jess. And this all feels like a little bit formal for me. I'm used to talking to dirty skaters and surfers, but this is all right. You guys seem smart.
No,
I'm just kidding.
I wore my ratty. Look at that. Holes in the sleeves just to make you feel home.
Is that because you're trying to repurpose that textile garment?
No, it's just really old. Yeah.
Listen, man, like I mentioned in your bio, I was like, we're in your apartment. And I guess the question I have for you straight off the bat to get straight into it is as a young adult, do you feel do you own this place?
No. This is a rental.
It's a rental.
Yeah.
As a young adult, do you feel like you will ever be a homeowner in this country?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, that's unless something changes, right? You're either signing up for 20 years of debt or not owning a home. That's the reality that people face who currently don't you currently don't own a home. And I'm not saying you have to own a home. I'm not saying that's the best thing to do or the only way to live. But it is also not secure to have rentals either. That's the other reality, which is that short-term leases. That's the standard in Australia. And I've been door knocking as part of the campaign. I heard a story a couple of weekends ago about a couple that they got 24 hours notice to get out of their place because and this wasn't
being evicted.
Yeah, exactly, being evicted. Yeah,
for legitimate reasons though.
No,
that's pretty dramatic.
No reasons, and it's not like they weren't paying the rent. One of them was that they were both in full time, or both in work at least. One of them was a doctor.
Do you think that our country, a renter's rights are not as strong as they could be?
I definitely think that, yeah.
See, I'm going to disagree a little bit because I've been a homeowner and I've actually I had an investment property at one stage in my life. I don't anymore. It's all gone. But, I had a renter in there and they were Airbnb-ing it without telling me and I couldn't get him evicted.
Really? Okay.
But as a renter, do you feel like you have rights?
I've been pretty lucky here. But I mean, there are places I've got a friend in Germany, for example, and I think that's a 10-year lease or something that they've got. And,
that's crazy.
And I mean, that's the kind of security that I think people need if they want to live a secure life, really, a settled life.
It feels like, and you can please disagree with me, but I just feel like it's such a cultural thing in our country to be a homeowner. And I think it's really questionable because most people don't own their home outright, like you said, but Australians just want to feel like they own homes.
Yeah, we do want to feel like that.
But you said you spoke to a friend in Germany. They don't have that same culture, do they?
Well, I'm not sure, to be honest, but maybe it doesn't matter if you own the home technically or legally if you can live there for 10 years. I mean, surely that's as good as owning a home for 10 years and then moving on after 10 years. I mean, what's the difference between owning it and renting it if you know that it's not going to that you're not going to have to leave?
Here's a deep question. What do you think the effect on that person's psyche would be?
Of what?
Well, if they had a 10-year lease as opposed to, I mean, in Australia, I don't know anyone that can obtain more than a 2-year lease.
Well, I think it gives a sense of security in a place. It's a pain in the ass to move house, especially when you don't want to. And if you're doing it a lot, then I mean it sucks really.
It does.
Yeah.
It's good for having a clean out though.
What do you mean moving?
I reckon you should move every 7 years.
Do you like to move around, Jess?
Oh, I haven't moved. I haven't moved for a little while, but yeah, I think maybe I'm just one of those people that accumulates too many things, and
Are you a hoarder, Jess?
maybe a little bit.
Is that because you're like, I could repurpose that item one day?
Yeah, I like to save things. I don't like
Yeah.
throwing things out.
I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
I appreciate it too. Yeah, so again, I mentioned in your bio your age, and I'm not an ageist. I am older than you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I think, are you being sarcastic? That's it. You've lost my vote. But anyway, I want to know what motivates a 24-year-old to want to go into politics in this day and age?
Really, it's just that I think politics can be done so much better in Australia. And there are specifics in every policy area. I think the one that most is closest to home for me is climate change, and we just seem to be doing very little. Our government seems to be dragged to the table every time to do anything about climate change. But also, we're still locking up refugees in detention centres offshore for really no good reason except for winning votes at home. And I feel like I just want a better government. That's honestly the simple answer. And at some point you have to do it yourself.
So do I.
Yeah.
So do I. And I have done for a long time. But I keep getting my heart broken. Over and over. I know a lot of Australians feel the same. I work in public education. I'm a high school teacher. I striked the other day. It was like, and when you really break down what our government is doing to our essential workers at the fundamental level, and that's just the fundamental level, I am at the point where it's too broken. What do you say to people who feel that way?
I have moments where I feel like that too. You can either take that approach and say that, it's all screwed. There's no point doing anything, or you can go the other way and go, you know what, we got to try at least, and that's what I'm doing. That's why I'm running.
What would you say to someone that said you're a dreamer then?
Well, so be it. If you don't believe it, then I'm not willing to give up on that yet. I'll be a dreamer rather than a defeatist who just gives up.
Yeah. You said you've been door knocking recently because the federal election's coming up in 2 weeks. And I want to make a disclaimer. I'm in no way a political podcast or a political commentator. I just feel like I'm just an average Joe who has to vote like everybody else. And if I can spread some pieces of knowledge to people through this, that's what I want to do. But when you go door knocking, what's the general sentiment that you've been receiving from the people that you're speaking to on the ground level?
There is a broad variety of things that people come up, broad variety of sentiments, but there's a few that are common and come up a lot. People, like you're saying, like you and like me, are just sick of crap. We just want a reasonable government that acts reasonably and does, treats people humanely and does the things that make sense to normal people, because that's who we are, all of us. But having said that, there's also a few people that, I don't know, they just are sure that they get into the I don't know, maybe it's Liberal, maybe it's Labor, maybe it's Greens mentality. They just say, oh yeah, that's my team. And it's a very team idea of my grandfather voted Liberal, my mother voted Liberal, I'm going to do the same.
How do you change that culture though? So the area that we live in, for those that don't know, how would you describe our area, our demographic?
It's generally referred to as a safe Labor seat. So last election, on first preferences, maybe we'll work into the details, nuts and bolts of what this means. But on first preferences, so the people that put one next to Labor, that was about 45% of the voters. And in the next rounds of distributing the votes, they've very quickly got over 50%. So pretty safe Labor seat. But I'm trying to get out there, shake things up.
Okay. Like on a philosophical level, Jess, I'm going to sort of put a question on you because I know you're very passionate and you're very community orientated and you very much, I see you're a champion of the people at heart. I can just see that. You might not think that, but I see it in you. Sorry, I get long questions sometimes. There's always been a disconnect between our leaders and the people, and it's not just in our country, it's around the world. Why do you philosophically see that division between our leaders and what the masses feel like they need?
I just think they're getting away with it. It's like a free-for-all in there. Like there's no integrity in politics at the moment, and that's why there's a disconnect. Because they're up in Canberra, they're doing their thing, they're doing all this pork barrelling, these grants for marginal electorates, and they just totally get away with it. There's no federal ICAC, there's like no integrity. So why wouldn't there be a disconnect? And we're totally powerless.
And they're not accountable.
No.
Or they're less accountable.
Yep. And you've got this revolving door of like ministers who, they might have the defence ministry and then they leave politics and they go and get a job for a defence company. And, how is that ethical or moral? But they get away with it and there's no laws to stop it.
Mm.
I have to slightly disagree that we're powerless because ultimately we do have the power to vote for whoever we want. And I think we've somehow got into this cycle of seeing politicians as, they're all the same, they're all bad, therefore, doesn't matter. Of course they're going to do these bad things. And then we see them do bad things and it reinforces that. And we go, oh, yeah, they're all the same, they're all bad. And we let people get away with doing bad things. If the Australian population decided that, when our politicians start lying or doing, corrupt things or whatever it is, then we go, actually, no, we're not going to take that. Then they wouldn't be doing all these corrupt things. It's.
Do you think we have a culture of apathy in our country?
I do think so. I think there's a definite element of apathy, and I really like to see that turned around.
Is that because we have it too good?
Could well be.
Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, but I do think there is that feedback loop of which is encouraged. I think it's encouraged by the people in power who lie and who behave badly. It's encouraged for them to think, don't worry about this. This is politics. It's complicated stuff. It's dirty. You don't want to get involved.
It's also how the media covers it as well, I think.
It is, yeah.
They reinforce it or the way they frame different things. Like, I don't know.
But, yeah. Can we keep blaming the media?
I think we can.
Yeah, I agree.
Well,
not completely.
Again, I don't know.
I know you don't read the Telegraph, but I'm a paramedic and I go to a lot of older people's houses and there's very often a copy of the Telegraph on the kitchen bench.
Yeah.
And the older generation's vote outnumbers us by a lot.
Okay.
So that's very powerful. And I don't think we appreciate how powerful it is, even though it's like pay to read online. Like there's still a lot of engagement with that generation.
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit unrealistic or altruistic in the fact that I think that there needs to be more personal accountability and we can choose the media we consume. And we can choose whatever we consume, really. So that's why I feel like we keep pointing the finger at the media, but then I have to accept that it's very culturally ingrained, especially that example that you gave when someone's been reading that newspaper for 30, 40, 50 years. We have to accept that that is an influence.
Yeah.
And we need to maybe fight fire with fire or just pivot to adapt to that, would you say?
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know, it's just the whole journalism culture in general, like we've seen in this election, it's just been horrendous. And the way that even just the way they ask questions or the things they go after is just ridiculous.
Well, why do you think they do that? I have an idea of an answer, but why do you think they're doing that? And it's really reflective. It goes into a bigger question around our society and culture. But why do you think they're asking those sort of questions?
Well, I don't know. I have a theory.
I want to hear it.
Okay. I
me
think
shy.
that it's because one journalist gets these gotcha moments and then they, get a lot of coverage and they get the big sting on Albo or wherever. And then the others want to have a go and they want the big sting or they want to catch them out with these gotcha moments. And then it just descends into the sewer, basically.
Yeah. And then also I think they're trying to create clickbait. They're trying to create the sound bites and the little grabs that, people will glance at as they scroll through the news on their phone, news.com, and they catch that one line, but it's all out of context.
Yeah, they're like, oh, he's stuffed up again.
Yeah. But it gets a million clicks.
But we got more clicks for Google It, mate, I think.
You got more what?
Did you see the Adam Bant at the press club?
No.
You are out of the loop.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll admit it. I don't know if it's a good thing. I feel a little bit ignorant, but go.
Oh, so there was a journalist that, what was the question again, Dylan?
Oh, in your speech, you mentioned something about wage prices, wage increases not keeping up with inflation. What's the WPI?
Google it, mate.
Is that what he said? Was that his comeback?
But it was just so gold. But then it was awesome because he had that awesome line, but then he had like a 2-minute spiel about why journalists have led politicians down this line of, everyone's so lost in politics because no one's, well, I think the line was we need to reach for the stars and we need to have a contest of ideas, and instead you're asking politicians to just remember these stupid facts, which their advisors would tell them anyway.
Yeah, right. It's interesting.
I'll send it to you.
Send it to me.
Yeah, I've got something else to say, which about your idea of the media and the way they portray things. I think there's also an element of always wanting to play the political game and because you can be. We could be talking about refugee policy. Why not? And journalists can either take the angle of looking at the policy itself and saying, why are we locking up refugees on Manus Island? What purpose does that serve? What does Labor say that serve? What does Greens say that serve? What does this Independent say that serve? Or the angle they often take on lots of different things is, what's the political game? What's the political maneuvering that's happening here? And they're trying to see it through the lens of power levers and people trying to shift their way, shift the power so that they succeed. And I'm not saying that's not happening, but I'm saying that's not as important as what's actually happening to the refugees and to our country and the things that are being spoken about, not the way that they are being spoken.
Interesting. It's a good perspective. Yeah, I like it. It's made me. I was just, as you were saying that, I'm just sort of thinking, it's so complex and there's so many layers to it. Do you feel at the moment, 2 weeks out of election time, like how are your anxiety levels?
Sure.
You seem like a pretty mellow guy.
Yeah. No, I would say almost notoriously relaxed.
You got a low heart rate? I can tell.
Yeah, maybe. I do actually.
No, I can sense it. I feel it straight away. You just like got a calmness about you, but I'm like, it's stressful.
Oh, definitely stressful, but I wouldn't say anxious. As I'm not an anxious person. Stressed, yes.
Because you're busy.
Because I'm busy and there's a lot riding on it. Like I really believe in what I'm running on and running with. I believe on the Greens policies and what we stand for. And this is literally the future of our country that I'm standing up for. I'm taking it seriously.
Yeah.
And there's a lot riding on it. And so yeah, you bet I'm nervous. You bet I'm stressed. I'm trying hard.
Because you care.
Because I care, yeah.
Put it in context for us. For the layperson who's disengaged, what would you winning the seat mean, and how does it sit in the context of the bigger picture?
Well, I'm running in the seat of Cunningham, which is a seat in the House of Representatives. And there's 151 seats in Australia in the House of Representatives. And so the most important thing I think that happens in either the House of Representatives or the Senate is that people can cast their vote on various pieces of legislation. So if you want law to be made to do literally anything, you want to change the law in this country, it goes through these two houses of parliament, and it comes down to votes. As you know, I'm also no expert, right? I've got a science background. I'm not some, I don't know, deeply versed political actor. But it is a numbers game ultimately, in that if you need, all right, we'll go back to the example of refugees. If you want to close down the camps, bring refugees to Australia, you need the numbers in the House, enough people to put their hand up and say, you know what, I want to bring them back, close down the camps. I'll be a vote for that. I'll also be a vote for climate action. I'll also be a vote for better funding to schools and hospitals. Putting me in the House of Reps is a vote for all these things that I believe in and I think we really need. And to be honest, I would rather that than someone in there who's not going to vote for these things. Doesn't matter how nice you are, how capable you are, how friendly you are. If you're not going to vote for important things, I don't want you as my representative.
Yeah, man. It's good. I often hear people say, and this may be the stupidest political question I've ever asked, but I'm going to ask it.
Good.
I often hear people say a vote for the Greens is a vote for Labor. What's the context of that? Why do people have that association?
I think that's something that the Liberal Party and National Party and the right-wingers say to scare people off voting for... Wait, sorry. You say a vote for the Greens is a vote for Labor. That's what I've...
Have you heard that before?
Yeah.
And again, like if it's a really stupid question, like
No.
I'm just going to I'm putting myself out there a bit, but I hear it regularly and I don't quite understand why people say that.
I think people misunderstand how preferences work.
Is it a preferential thing?
Yeah.
I think they think we do preference deals, whereas you, as a voter, you allocate your own preferences.
Okay.
And we've done that since 2016. So, yeah, you do one Greens to Labor, and if Greens don't get in, then your vote flows to Labor. But you decide that. You could do one Greens to Liberal, and then your vote might flow to the Liberal. And then if the Liberal doesn't get in, then it'll flow to the next person.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That sort of makes a bit more sense to me. I get it.
One thing that I have heard is which is actually what I thought you said first, and then realised I wasn't thinking the same thing as what you said. Is people, Scott Morrison and various right wingers say a vote for Labor is a vote for the Greens, and the reason that they say things like that is because there's a real chance that after the next election, Labor won't be able to form a government in their own right, so they'll have to work with the Greens.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so by voting Labor in, you might end up with a bit of Greens as well, depending on where you're voting and the makeup of the next parliament. And that's those right wingers trying to say,
you think it's
those crazy Greens, don't vote Labor, you get them.
Propaganda, like it's propaganda.
It is, yeah.
How interesting. Yeah, it's so interesting. It's funny how there's this, I guess, image of the Greens Party as being like radical and like you said, like to an extent, and I think I said this to Kath Blakey as well, like to an extent, militant in their views, and whereas when I actually do break down the policies of the Greens Party, I'm like, that seems like really logical. What, you want to put a bike path in so people can ride their bikes instead of drive? Okay.
Dental into Medicare.
Yeah.
Reasonable.
Yeah.
Tax billionaires.
Yeah. You want to relax and tax cannabis laws, remove a black market, hang on, and with a substance that's actually proven to be very good in palliative care. Oh, hang on, and it's like, doesn't seem radical to me. Do you think the issue is that we have an aging population and that we're really going up against a lot of elderly people who are set on their ways? Or am I being too?
Yeah,
I guess not. Sorry, man. It's a long way about saying. I mean, are we just not progressive enough in our mindset as a country?
I think we're not.
What do you think?
I don't think anyone likes change, to be honest. I think change is scary. And I think, as you say, there are a lot of older people, and I think the Greens present something that is not what they used to. And if you've been told your whole life that cannabis is bad and that tax is bad and that, I don't know, cars are great and don't worry about...
And skateboarders are bad too.
Skateboarders, yeah. Yeah, don't get me started on skateboarders.
Hooligans.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if
they're elite athletes, everybody. We're in the Olympics now, so piss off. Keep going. Sorry, Mum, if you listen to this. I try not to swear when I do something serious like this. Keep going.
Yeah, but basically, yeah, I think people have the views that they've had for a long time, and it takes time to change things.
Yeah, man, it's true. So, where'd you grow up?
Well, I've lived in Wollongong since I was 13. I was born in Brisbane, and I moved around a fair bit. I was in Armidale for a few years. I was in New Zealand for a few years. I was actually in Ireland a few years before after I left Brisbane. But been here since I was 13. Went to Bulli High School, studied at University of Wollongong. Yeah.
So again, for those that don't know the geography that well, Wollongong is like 1 hour south of Sydney in Australia on the southeast coast. So I just always like to put the context in, just some people don't know.
Oh, and Bulli High School, it's in Wollongong.
Well, I meant to describe that area.
Bulli, okay, so...
Describe the land. You know what? Describe this. I'm going to describe the landscape and describe the community and the type of people that live in that area.
Okay, well, when I describe Wollongong to people who aren't familiar, I always like to put it like this. And, okay, full disclosure, I studied mathematics at university and
you seem
science.
Smart.
And I put it like this. There's
Don't laugh at me, Jess.
Break it into a graph.
Not that complicated.
I reckon you know your way around an Excel spreadsheet. But
You bet I do. Yeah.
Some people get obsessed with that. My housemate's obsessed with them.
Anyway, this has been worked up too much.
Said want to be good, man.
Anyway, I like to say it's got a pretty good beach to city ratio.
Okay.
Because Wollongong, pretty skinny, mountain on one side, beach on the other side. Beautiful. My school, Bulli High School, you could, just dump my apron on the floor. That's good. There's, you can walk out the front and literally 200 meters down the road, there was the ocean. Pretty nice. And you look the other way up the road, and there's the mountain, the escarpment that runs down the coastline. So, pretty beautiful place. The people, definitely a lot of surfy skater types around.
The best type of people. Sorry, keep going.
And I think there's, to be honest, it's a real beautiful place, and I think people lead a pretty good life. And I think there's a mix of wealth demographics around. I that's something I quite liked in my school. There was, a range of wealthy and relatively less wealthy people.
Yeah. How would you describe your childhood then? Like, do you have fond memories?
Yeah, as I said, I've lived in a few different places, and what that means is that I don't have any long-term connection to a place from since before I moved here.
Yeah,
which is bad, but it's also means I've had a lot of interesting experiences. I'd say, I guess I lack that childhood connection to a place that some people get from growing up there and staying there their whole lives. But I've also got to meet a lot of people and see a lot of interesting things. So.
Yeah. Were you a good student as a kid?
Yeah, I was a bit of a nerd. Let's not.
Really?
Yeah.
You're not going to pretend?
I'm not even going to pretend. I'm sorry.
The thing is, nerds turn out to be the coolest people in the world.
That's what I like to think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they do the coolest shit in the end. Like they create amazing things and stuff.
Well, we'll see.
And then who's laughing now? Like the high school jock guy who was cool in high school. Maybe he's not cool anymore. Now the nerd's cool.
No, I'm not saying it wasn't cool. I was just saying it was a nerd.
Ooh.
Yeah. That's.
Yeah. So like you were doing. Let me guess your electives in high school. You were 11 and 12.
Okay.
You did chemistry.
I did. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. 4-unit maths.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, that's good. That's good, man. Then you mix it up with a bit of music.
No, I wasn't even that interesting.
Oh, really?
I'm sorry.
Oh, industrial arts.
I did that in year 9, 10. Actually, I quite enjoyed that. Liked a bit of metalwork, a bit of welding. Made a pretty cool. Okay, you know how you have like, if you go hunting and you shoot your stag, cut off the head. I've never done this. Which is why
On Mount Kira, because there's a deer problem?
Yeah, I don't know.
Is that in your policy? What are you going to do about the deers on Mount Kira? That's what I want to know.
Jeez, don't ask me that. Anyway.
You Greens better have something for that, Jesus.
I'm sure we do. I just don't know it, to be honest.
Sorry, keep
It's
going.
hard for us to talk about because of the animal justice.
Yeah, I know.
We don't go on there.
Yeah, I won't throw you under that bus.
Anyway, yeah, so
But we don't like deer.
you can probably tell I've never done this, but...
Never done a podcast?
No, but yes. I've never shot a deer and stuck its head on my wall.
Okay.
But I did make, in metalwork, finally getting back to the root of this.
It's a metaphor?
No. Oh, this is just getting lost. But anyway, it's in metalwork I made basically a deer head, like a Art Deco thing. That's probably the peak of my artistic
That's cool.
ventures in high school.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Cool story, man. So,
Is it here? I want to see it now.
yeah. So did you? So did you go to university straight from high school?
Yeah, I did.
So you when you were at high school, you were studying to get into university. You knew that you wanted to go on an academic pathway.
Yeah. Listen, I always enjoyed science and I still do. Just kind of trying to understand the way our world works. It seems a very worthwhile use of my time.
So you did a degree in science.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Graduate?
Yeah.
Recently?
Yep. So graduated in the middle of 2020 in the peak of the unemployment caused by COVID.
Yeah.
And but at the start of 2021, I did my honors year. Actually in Canberra at ANU.
Did you write a thesis?
I did write a thesis.
Would you mind sharing what it was on?
I can. It's on. So it's on solar thermal systems. So these are the ones where you have a big array of mirrors, and they all reflect the light onto a single receiver. That receiver gets really hot, and with that heat, you can do industrial processes, or you can take it and use it to run basically a steam engine, just
generate energy.
Yeah. Solar energy.
Sounds progressive, man.
Yeah, geez. Those bloody progressives.
Yeah, so because those structures already exist, correct?
Yeah.
So you wrote your thesis on the effectiveness of it, amongst other things?
Yeah, so basically trying to look at how in the mirrors themselves, if they're misaligned or they're kind of wobbly or they got scratches or all these things, how that actually affects the best efficiency you can get for the total system.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you have the means to go straight to university with your family?
I did. Yeah, I was lucky to, yeah.
And supported through university?
Yeah, because I lived with my parents, my family. They live very near the university, which is great. Literally a 25-minute walk. It was beautiful. I'd walk through the botanic gardens each and every morning, which is a great way to start the day.
That's so nice. I live right near them now too, in Gwynneville.
Nice.
Yeah. Jess, you're from Bulli.
Yes.
Grew up in there. Yeah. So your experience growing up in that area, would you say it was comparative to what Dylan was saying, or was it different back when you grew up there?
It was probably a bit different, like the demographics when I was there.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people moved down from Sydney probably between now and when I left. But I was just actually laughing because I went to Bulli High studied almost the same subjects as you. I think you were the school captain. I was the school captain. Then I went to UAW, studied science, and now I'm in the Greens.
Wow.
That's so weird.
Well-worn path.
There you go. Heard it here first.
Yeah.
And I heard,
Breaking news.
like, what did greedy Kath Blakey do? She would have done something similar.
I think it was environmental science or
It
engineering.
was environmental science. See, there's a
Yeah.
pattern there.
She went to Wollongong High.
But I guess too, like, obviously a lot of the Greens Party policies are heavily based in environmental conservation, which is very much linked to science. So it does draw science-minded people, correct?
Yeah.
Do you? Oh, sorry, Jess.
I was just going to say, I think you feel like you study science and you want to make a difference, and then you start seeing that scientists don't really get listened to, and then you start getting interested in politics.
Who gets listened to? Who gets listened to then?
Who has all the power? We know politicians. So
But as people, politicians do. But I guess I often think, how are those politicians getting into those positions in terms of the context of their upbringing? So are our political leaders all in that upper echelon of society and economic status? Are they from white privileged backgrounds? Is that why there's a disconnect between our leaders and the people? Because they've been brought up in privilege. Is that another reason? I'm just thinking out loud.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think there's a really good representation, cross-section of what's actually who lives in the community. I mean, you see a lot of old white men in suits, and I don't know, I guess the Labor Party's a little bit more progressive. They've got more women. But, yeah, there's not a lot of women in the Liberal Party.
Yeah, I agree. I think we don't have a fair representation of our population. And you know, some people say, you know, there's a bunch of, you know, they refer to the old white men, and I say, well, I'm white and I'm a man, but I can help you with the old bit. So I'm not saying I'm perfect in that regard either. I'm definitely not.
Dude, it's rad. Like, it takes so much courage. I remember what I was doing when I was 24. I wasn't thinking big picture like you, and I wouldn't have had the courage to, you know, like, I mean, door knocking, public speaking, like these things are scary. Like being on my podcast, it's terrifying, dude. No, I'm just kidding. Terrifying.
Just takes it in stride.
Yeah, and I'm going to ask you another question. Like, as on a human level, man, I love it when I see someone who's charismatic and passionate and speaks well and lights me up. You know, I want to be lit up. You know, I've yet to see a politician that really lights me up. Is there a politician that lights you up that way? And it doesn't even have to be someone a party that you vote for. Can you think of anyone in the history of politicians?
Well, I've just mentioned that speech from Adam Band, which you didn't watch. I highly recommend it.
I'm going to Google that right now.
You're going to Google it, mate.
I'm going to Google that shit.
Yeah. Oh, you didn't get it.
I got it.
Oh,
I know.
you did?
You told me to Google it. I'm going to Google it.
Okay, anyway. Yeah, no, I do think Adam Band does say, and sure, I'm a member of the Greens. Maybe you say, oh yeah, of course you'd say that. But, and a couple of, maybe 1 year ago, he really distilled out, he made the point that Greens policies are based around looking after people and looking after the environment. And that's really the most important things, right? I don't see how anything else comes close to that.
Some might say that, that's too surface level. Looking after people is helping them, you know, protect their businesses and giving them opportunities to be entrepreneurial, and, you know, like, it's, again, like, even just thinking about it, my head starts going, Yeah. But yeah, I see what you're saying. Like, yeah, people first, you know. Like, definitely. And we talk about sustainability. I really do believe in, like, I'm definitely about sustainability of the environment, but I think we do forget of the sustainability of the individual and our individual well-being. You know, it needs to be really considered. I mean, maybe it is. I don't know. So, yeah, man. Look, it's been pretty epic, and like I don't want to take too much of your time because I know you're busy and you're leading into the election.
It is a pleasure.
But I do want to ask a few more, we're talking about politics, but look, I'm going to give you this little moment to outline like if you get elected, all right, you've sort of mentioned it, you know, what are you going to be pushing in like Parliament? You've mentioned refugees, you've mentioned, you know, other environmental strategies. So tell us why we should vote for you.
Well, as I said, from your representative in Parliament, you want them to vote for things that you believe in. And I'll tell you what I believe in. I believe in real action on climate change. So the Greens are taking the only science-based climate policy to this election. The other Labor and Liberal parties, their policies fully allow 114 new coal and gas mines to be opened up. Those are new ones. That's not just continuing the ones that we've currently got. That's expanding the fossil fuel industry. I also am a big advocate for closing down the refugee camps, bringing them here, increasing our refugee intake, treating people with a bit of respect, giving them permanent visas. I want to see better funding for all public education so that schools are fully resourced to teach our next generations. I want to see better also education in TAFE and university, make all of that free. Also early childhood education. You know, my mum said when I was probably in second year uni, I don't know what prompted this, but she looked over at me and she said, you know, I think the best education you received was when you were at preschool. And I mean, I said I was a nerd all the way through and, you know, blah, blah, blah. But I don't know. She reckons, and I am in no position to dispute this. I don't remember what happened in preschool, but she reckons that set me up really well. And I think we need to encourage that and fund that and set up our future generations for as well as the best future they can have.
Yeah. Your mum's spot on. Those years from 0 to 5 are when all the major neurological pathways are being developed and mowed into your brain. And they are crucial years in terms of, I mean, we did a little bit of research on it at university in terms of setting up, you know, an individual for academic and emotional success in their life. So maybe that's why you're so mellow. What was the preschool you went to? Oh, maybe I'll send my kids there.
It was.
No, don't tell us. Don't tell us.
Okay. No. They're not sponsoring this program.
No, they're not.
Yeah.
No. What about you, Jess? Are you going to throw your hat back in the ring at some stage?
I might have another crack at council. I feel like that's unfinished business.
Yeah.
I actually hope that Dylan might have a crack at council.
No, thinking
We'll
bigger.
see. We'll see.
See how we go this election. But yeah, that would be pretty cool.
Let's be real. How optimistic are you in terms of winning the seat?
Well, I'll put it this way. My best friend. Okay, so I'm not advocating for gambling, and I encourage people not to gamble. But my best friend, he has a sports bet account. He had 50 cents left on the account, and he put it all on me winning this election. And the odds were,
what are they?
36. So
are you actually on sports bet?
I'm on sports bet.
So you're 1 to 36.
Yeah. So not great.
I'll
but,
put 50.
You know,
I'll put 50 cents on that.
Yeah, sweet. All right.
We're playing the long game.
We are.
Narrow the margin.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. You're on sports bet. Can anyone get on sports bet? How do you get on sports bet? Like
you got to run an election, mate.
Really?
Get on it. Yeah.
So someone's picked that out.
Yeah.
How's your media campaign been going? Like, have you been doing much media?
Yes, I've been harassing journalists at every possible turn.
So you're reaching out to journalists?
Yeah, that's been one of the things I've learned. Probably the most surprising thing.
They're dying for stories?
Yeah, and just the weird relationship I have with them now. I always imagined journalists, you know, somehow knew these weird and wonderful things and they put together good stories, you know, off their own back. But no, they're just a bunch of people trying to write an article.
Mainstream journalists?
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're on deadlines constantly.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, we do blame journalists a lot, but they're trying to feed their families and they're on heavy deadlines. And, you know, that I sort of can't, you can't blame them either, you know. But do you feel like you could be talking to them and it's all good, and then they go and stab you in the back? Has that happened?
Oh, no. No, they've definitely given me a little bit of there's a shaky media article, an unfavorable headline, but the article itself wasn't too bad.
Okay.
And that was around Green's policy for providing guaranteed jobs to coal miners who exit the industry, or guaranteed wage, sorry. But I think it's just been really weird that I can call up a journalist and say, hey, do you want to talk to me about this policy that we've got? And they go, oh, yeah, all right. I'll take a grab from you.
Yeah. Well, they're thanking you. You're doing their job for them.
Yeah.
They don't have to find you. But maybe that's the problem too, because the wrong people do that and then they do it on the biggest scale. Like, it's just a pain in the ass. And that's maybe the problem.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm going to start reaching out to journalists as well and tell them what to write.
Yeah.
Just ring in the radio.
But do you do it?
Yeah.
You do it. I know you do it on ABC radio.
Yeah, mostly ABC. But I have been on I-98 for different things. Sometimes they grab things I put on Instagram, and then Instagram's great for that. They'll see something and contact. But we're really lucky in the Illawarra because we have local media, like ABC Illawarra, the Illawarra Mercury. Like, we've got local radio, and we news. So a lot of electorates don't have all that. So, we're great. I guess my comments before about journalists, and that was more directed at the press pack that follows, the two majors around.
Yes.
Not so much the local journalists.
Let's be perfectly clear. All the lovely journalists that have been interviewing me have been very nice to me. Please continue. Don't listen to what Jess said.
But
they are pretty good. They're not. They're pretty impartial, and
until they're not. They're impartial till they're not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I just feel like they'll turn on you at the drop of a hat.
Yeah.
If their boss said, no, I don't want you to write that, or because that's not going to go with our company's ethos or agenda, that must happen all the time.
I haven't really had that experience locally so much.
Not local. I haven't.
Not locally.
I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but I haven't experienced that with local journalists.
What do you say to people that say you're too young?
Well, I mean, that's not a reason not to vote for someone.
Thank you.
If I'm incompetent, that's a good reason not to vote for me. If you can tell that I'm incompetent by any means that doesn't stack up against the other candidates, then go for it. Don't vote for me. But I mean, I'm inexperienced perhaps because I'm young, but I mean, come along to our candidate forums. Ask us tricky questions, see who answers best.
Well, my question's tricky. Should I be trickier?
No, they were good.
Okay.
They weren't tricky. They weren't.
I'm trying to think of some way to bring you unstuck.
Go for it.
Yeah, I don't have anywhere. I'm not smart enough. But I do want to say, if someone ever mentioned your age, I'd be like, well, you should be thanking me for not being old, because I think the problem is, like, we need more young people in these seats. Like, they might be inexperienced, but this is how cultures are going to change. This is how things will change, and we talk about, the older white men in position. I don't think that's the problem at all. I mean, no, sorry, it is problematic on different levels. I'm generalizing, but I think it's older people being up there is the problem. I think let's give young people more of an opportunity to have a voice. But I also think it takes very courageous young people to do it as well. And like, how do we build those up? How do we engage young people in politics to even want to enter it like you? What would you say to them?
Well, what I'm trying to do is...
a rant.
No, I guess that's part of the reason that I am running, to try and engage young people.
Like as an example.
Yeah, and just to really demonstrate that young people do have a place in politics, that you can make yourself heard. I think it kind of goes back to a bit like what I was saying before. Politicians like to say, and big business and, whoever it is, they like to say, don't worry about this, we'll handle it. It's complicated. You don't know what you're talking about. Well, I'm saying, no, if something is wrong or something is immoral, doesn't make sense to you, I'm not saying be arrogant and say, I know best, but I am saying trust yourself sometimes. Don't just believe what people say because they use big fancy words that they know what the WPI is.
What is it?
I don't know. just Google it.
They're good. What you were saying there before I was being a smart ass, like they're good messages, man. It's really good. It's inspiring. Yeah. Jess, you know what? It's been a pleasure having both of you here. And I ask all guests to come to the podcast with a cause they want to support or advocate for. So have you got anything for us today?
Yeah, I thought I just did that. But
Let's do it again.
all right.
Officially.
Officially, you go out and be part of your society. Make the future you want to make.
So you don't want to advocate for a charity or a cause?
No.
Okay.
I'm going to advocate for you, the little listener, whoever you are, to be open to change, to be willing to go out there and stand up for what you believe in. And maybe that means supporting a charity or joining a group or whatever it is. But make sure that whatever you do in your local community, in your country, whatever it is, make sure you believe in it and make sure you do what you think is right.
Thank you for saying that. And I'll in these show notes, if you scroll down, I always have a section where so-and-so advocates for, and I'm going to have Dylan advocates for standing up for what you believe in.
Beautiful.
Jess, what about you? I'm going to put you on the spot. Is there anything you want to advocate for before we go?
Vote for Dylan? No.
I like your T-shirt, by the way. How do I get one of those?
I brought you one.
No, did you?
Yeah.
I was joking.
I'm going to advocate for PK DIY selling some T-shirts. And
Okay.
I'll give you the link.
So just quickly explain what PK DIY is. I know what it is, but tell other people who don't know.
The DIY skate park at Port Kembla.
Okay.
Yeah, long story short, it was going to all get taken away. We fought it. We went to council. We won. And now we're going to fix it up. So we're doing a little bit of fundraising.
Yeah.
We've got some pretty cool T-shirts from some local artists, Pat Grant and Louis Joyce. And we're just doing a little fundraiser to repair the DIY.
Yeah. And as a skateboarder and on behalf of other Wollongong skateboarders, I just want to say thank you for all your hard work and your husband and your friends. But I know that, you're humble, but you did really drive that. And so thank you. And I know other people did too, but you very much, were instrumental in it. So thank you.
Yeah,
it's
no
a great
worries.
little
It was
skate
a big
spot.
Team effort. I was down there at Savo and it was so cool. There was circus pop-up was on one side of the court.
Really?
The community centre goes down there now on a Tuesday afternoon and does circus. It's social circus. And then so all the kids had the hoops and pogo sticks and stuff. And then on the other side there was just some teenagers skating happily in their own little space. It's just such a great spot.
It's a little hub, and isn't it amazing when people feel like they have a sense of ownership over something? There's just some magic in it, when they get together and do it themselves. So thank you. So you can find this episode on terriblehappytalks.com, and you can also find it on all the major podcast platforms such as Spotify, Buzzsprout, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Podcast Addict, Overcast. But whatever platform you prefer to listen on, it always helps if you hit the subscribe button or follow. And also, if you could, I'd really appreciate it if you left a review on Spotify. They now have that function. And yes, I want to extend the reach of this podcast as far as I can, so I can give opportunities to people such as Dylan and Jess to get their voice as far as possible and advocate for these kind of messages. So please subscribe and write a review. I'd appreciate it. All right. I think we're done. Awesome.
Thanks
Such
very
a
much,
pleasure,
Shannon.
man.
Thanks, Shannon.
Mr. Dylan Green, everybody.
Thank you very much.